Hello friends, welcome to GSTZen annual written webinar series. This is chapter 3 and we are going to discuss about how to arrive gross turnover in this session. Now friends, in the earlier session I have clearly explained how the GSTR 9 has been outlaid and turnover and liability plays a very critical role. So let us begin with the premise for which the turnover needs to be reported in GSTR 9. Now, people always ask this question, what is the source of information that gets reported or that needs to be reported? Friends, maybe GSTR 1, maybe GSTR 3B, maybe books, and all the three might have a different information. If you notice, I have scored out all saying that none of this is information. What is the source of information is the turnover on which the taxes have been paid to the government. So you have paid the taxes to the government. To the extent of the taxes which have been paid is what reported in GSTR 9. The payment of taxes could have been done in GSTR 3B or DRC 03. So what gets reported is the taxes which have been paid, it gets grossed up and reported. If you have not paid the taxes, you are not going to report the turnover. Likewise, people may ask this question, what about exempted turnover if it is not reported? Now, exempted turnover has no liability to pay the taxes. Having said that, you can very well go ahead and report all the exempted turnover which is missed in reporting either in GSTR 1 table 8 or in GSTR 3B table 3. So, for the turnover where the tax is applicable, you would only report the turnover where the taxes are paid. Now, so the premise is get the turnover that is declared on which the taxes have been paid. Now, it is not only GSTR 1, not only GSTR 3B. Now, there could be a situations where sometimes there would be a wrong declaration which have been happened in 3B. Instead of turnover declaring 1 crore, I have declared only 1 lakh, but I have paid the taxes, right? It could be anything. So, forget about the value which is declared as a turnover in the 1 and 3B. Compute what is the turnover for which you have paid the taxes. Now, you might have paid the taxes in a different category, or you might have done a wrong reporting. Instead of reporting under 3.1a, you would have reported on 3.1b, vice versa. Anything. People also ask this question, what is the turnover I have to take from the books? Now, is it a gross turnover which is sales, or can I include other income? What is that I have to include? Sometimes there are credits which are reported in the debit side of the P&L, like I have claimed a reimbursements from my services, out of pocket expenses. From the purpose of GST, it is also a turnover. But for the purpose of financial accounting, you would have netted off with your expenses. So irrespective of it, there are various questions where what is my starting point. The starting point is look at your credit side of your P&L. Look at your credit side of your P&L, and this is how you have to start. Let's see how we have to start. First, from the PAN-based turnover, because the audited financials have PAN-based turnover, from the PAN-based turnover, you segregate each GSTN wise what is the turnover. Each GSTN wise what is the turnover. And then do the GST adjustments. Like as I am explaining to you on the screen in the PPT, I will also walk you through live how this can be done in the GSTZen also. Once you do from your audited financial, if you prepare a GSTN wise turnover, then you have to do the GST adjustments. What are the GST adjustments? Friends, you know there would be a timing difference between the recognition of revenue in books of accounts and the revenue for the purpose of GST. Because section 12 and 13 of the GST Act talks about time of supply. So that is very important. The time of supply for GST would be different from the revenue in the books of accounts. For example, someone who is providing an AMC, in the month of January, he would have undertaken an AMC contract for 1 full year and he would have issued an invoice, collected the money. But for the purpose of recognizing revenue, he would only recognize April, May, June, January, February, March in the books, and after the next period, he would be recognizing in the next financial year. Having issued an invoice in the month of January, for the purpose of GST, it would become a turnover in January. Likewise, unbilled revenue, advances received. I have listed all the various possible scenarios that can fit in where you have to add something to your books of accounts or reduce from your books of accounts to arrive at what should be the gross turnover for the purpose of GST. The question that comes is this all I can declare in my GSTR 9? I wouldn't say the answer as yes, because I have started with the premise that what you can report is the turnover on which the taxes have been paid. So we have to come step by step. Now, this is the turnover ideally that should get reported in GST turnover. So we started with the books, we made some positive adjustments, we made some negative adjustments, and we derived what should be the GST turnover for the purpose of GSTR 9. Now, having said that, it is our duty to now understand where should I report. Table 4, 10, 11, 5, there are various tables. How do I report? Please note, taxable turnover would go between table 4, 10 and 11. In our next chapter, we will deal with how do we do the segregation, right? Now, before we get into this segregation, you also have to identify this turnover which you have arrived into various rate wise. How much is 5%, 12%, 18%? If it is exempted, how much is exempted? If it is export with pay, also you segregate into various categories. Rate wise, you do the segregation. Along with the rate wise, you also have to segregate type wise. How much is towards B2B? How much is towards B2C? You make all sorts of segregation of your turnover. Let me also show you how we will do this in GSTZen. Let me go to the GSTZen. Now in GSTZen on your dashboard, you will see month on month the GSTR 1 and 3B. I am picking 2018-19 GSTR 9. Let me click here and it will take us to GSTR 9. And GSTZen has an option to automatically calculate the information. So where there is a step by step how it needs to be done. Step 1, you have to prepare the preconditional preliminary data of downloading what the data is there in the portal, which is GSTR 1, 3B, 2A, and some information of the next year, which is 1920, is also required. In our upcoming videos, you will understand why. You can log into the government portal and also download the auto calculated information. What I am going to show you now is the step 3, which is a very critical step where the information between table 4 to 13 is provided. I am only now talking about turnover. Let's see how do we fill the turnover information. I am clicking on this fill button. We will log into the GSTZen. So there are totally various sections. Part 1, it is the details which are there in the GST returns. It is a static information, we cannot do anything. Part 2 is computation of turnover. Part 2 is computation of turnover. So in this chapter, we will only discuss about how do we arrive at gross turnover. So let me jump directly to part 2. Now there is a lot of information that is available which is downloaded from the portal. Let me just collapse all and directly move to part 2, which is turnover computation. Now, how do I do the turnover computation? First, section 1, I will do a data entry from my audited financial statements. From my audited financial statement, what is the turnover? And this information I will segregate GSTN wise. Against each GSTN, what is the turnover? I will be doing the segregation. Once I do it, I will now do the adjustments of unbilled revenue, billed revenue. I'll make the adjustments and do the segregation from what is there in the books turnover, do all the adjustments and arrive at what is the turnover for the purpose of GST. Having arrived the turnover for the purpose of GST, how much of it is taxable where the tax liability is there, how much of it is not taxable where there is no tax liability. So I will do a 3 category segregation. 1, taxable and non-taxable. Second, against which rate of tax I will do a data entry under different heads of accounts, the rate of tax I will be doing the segregation. Third, very important, is segregation into the various categories. How much is B2B, how much is B2C, how much is exports. I will be doing segregation into all of these categories. That is what I have shown in the presentation, right? So friends, this is how one has to arrive a GST turnover from the books of accounts. So this chapter was about arriving gross turnover. Please watch us on the next chapter. After arriving the gross turnover, how do we segregate this turnover between table 4, 5, 10 and 11? And I am sure as you are watching and preparing the data for yourself, you might get some questions. Feel free to get in touch with us. Write to us at support@gstzen.in for any questions thereon. Thank you for watching the video.